welcome in new edition of Caught Stealing, the Fantasy Baseball Podcast here at fantasyalarm.com. I'm your host, Colby Conway, at Colby R. Conway over on X. And with me here, as always, Matt Selz at the Selz Man. Matt, you've been not necessarily traveling, but you had an eventful event that you occurred yesterday that we're going to talk about a little bit later in more detail. And as we're recording this midday on Thursday, April 25th, it is day one of the NFL draft. I can see you have your Chiefs shirt on. I do not have, my wedding ring has the Texans logo on it. So I have the Texans, but I do have I got my Nico Collins rookie card sitting right here. I got my Henry Toa medal card here. So no shortage of Texans stuff here. We'll give a bold prediction for round one of the NFL draft later. But Matt, let's talk some fantasy baseball. Let's see what's going on here. We don't need to focus on football. This is a fantasy baseball podcast. And let's start with this. In St. Louis, Jordan Walker demoted. What are the Cardinals doing? Are they trying to capture the magic last year by sending him down in hopes that he comes back and it's the same type thing? Or is this just, dare I say, ineptitude or inept from the organization as a whole?
I think they're inept. I honestly do. Aside from the Nolan Arenado theft from the Rockies, can we name one good trade that they've made over the last, decade? Not real. Like Tyler O'Neill getting away from St. Louis and then shining in Boston. There's that. Marcell Ozuna goes from the Cardinals to everywhere else and is better, right? He was better in Miami, then went to the Cardinals and then went and stunk and then left and got better, right? Nolan Arenado, sure. He was playing in Coors versus Busch Stadium, not that big of a thing. He's worse. They tried to take Wilson Contreras out of the catching role last year because they signed him to a 6-year deal and then 2 months in said, oh, this wasn't the guy we thought we were getting. I think it's their system. I don't think that the Cardinals are as good at baseball or that town is as good at liking baseball as everybody wants to claim. I really don't. I'm not trying to rant on the Cardinals. I'm just saying if you look at their recent trade history and what they've given up to get, they gave up Randy Arozarena for Matthew Liberatore. How's that working out?
Not good.
They used to have Zach Gallen. They don't anymore. That didn't work out so well, did it? No. Yeah. I don't think this John Mozeliak era in the front office has been very good for them. I think they have survived on a mediocre NL Central.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
I mean, his barrel rate, I wrote this up in the prospect report this week. Okay. The barrel rate, sure. Small sample size. Way better this year. Launch angle, better. Hard hit, exit velocity, up. The difference between actual batting average and expected batting average, large, right? Difference between slugging and expected slugging, large. The difference between WOBA and expected WOBA, large. Last year, he outproduced all of his expected numbers with worse barrel rate, worse launch angle, and worse exit velocity. So I think they're looking at baseline stats and trying to convince people that they're the most analytic club on the planet when they're not.
I say this a little bit in jest, so bear with me when I ask this. Should teams be targeting the Cardinals in trades?
I think so.
It seems to benefit them.
I think so. I mean, I saw the list on Twitter the other day. They basically broke down who they had and now who they do have in over the last several years, who they've traded out and who's replaced them. And it's not even, and we're not even talking about their top prospect who passed away, obviously RIP. This was several years ago, not recently. That guy would have been great. But the pitching staff has been atrocious for a while. They have not been able to home grow their own pitchers for a while now. I think Adam Wainwright is the last success story of a homegrown pitcher, and that says all you need to know about that. The bats get better when they leave. And I don't know why they keep messing with a 21-year-old. They're going to send him down. He's going to light up Memphis, and then they're going to go, oh, see, he refound some. No, he's just a dude that needs to figure it out at the major league level. At some point, you have to let the guy figure it out at the major league level.
Yep.
there's no way to say, oh, he's hitting 400 at AAA, so he's going to come up here and immediately hit 300. No, they don't translate. The pitching is completely different.
And then we'll talk about another team here in a second, but let's put the fantasy baseball hat on with Jordan Walker. What do we do? Do we hold? I think so too.
I don't think it's going to be a terribly long stay down there. I mean, at this point, what are you going to? You can't trade out because now that he's demoted, he has the new owner's in the same position you are, except you're asking them to give up active at bats or active innings pitched for a guy who was demoted. You're not going to drop him because somebody's going to go pick that guy up on the waiver wire for cheap and just sit there, right? So you've got to hold him at this point. It does suck. The entire community is as baffled as I am about what the heck the Cardinals are doing. But yeah, that's, you got to hold him.
Yep, that's the position I'm in. I'm gonna fight like hell to hold on to him and hope that, obviously there's gonna come a point in time where if your team gets ravaged by injuries and you need the active at bats, you may have to make that tough call. But as long as you can hold on, I'm holding on and hope that the promotion comes sometime soon. Another team, maybe the Cardinals of the American League, maybe let's call them that. But here's what I put in the show sheet for y'all who can't see it but are listening to this. I just said, are the Blue Jays the worst team above 500? Just simply put. And I say that a little bit facetiously. And my point to this, when you think of the Blue Jays, other than maybe Kevin Gausman and Jordan Romano, and you probably are a fan if those are some of the first names that come to mind, but it's many of their bats that come to mind first when you think of the Blue Jays. That would be my assumption. If I know you're not supposed to assume, but I am going to. This team, I'm looking at it over here. They haven't scored more than 6 runs in a game since April 6th.
That's not great.
We're coming up on 3 calendar weeks since the last time an offense of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Bo Bichette, Justin Turner, superstar Ernie Clement, and a bunch of other guys on this team. You have 3 games this year where you have scored more than 6 runs. They came March 28th, March 31st, and April 6th. That's it. This offense, what is up in Toronto? Like, I don't know how to say it other than, are they the worst team above 500?
They might be. This is an ongoing thing. Remember last year they couldn't get their offense going. We were all wondering, was this just a down thing for, their studs? They had a comeback in 2022. 2023, everybody was hoping they would build on it, and then they didn't. They all basically fell flat, except for, Bo Bichette had a pretty good year. Not everybody, but Bo Bichette had a pretty good year. Vlad had, by his standards, by most people's standards, had a down year, and then the defense got worse. And now this year it's worse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Everybody loved that they moved the fences in. Maybe that's the problem. They moved the fences in, and now they're all swinging too hard to try to get it over shorter fences, and now they suck. I don't know. Either that or their hitting coach is just not good at his job. But I would expect a move on that. I would imagine sooner rather than later.
This is going to be one of those scenarios where you're right. Something has to happen. And if it's the hitting coach is the fall guy or something has to change. There is no way. Look at the lineup. Listen, I'm glad Dalton Varsho's kind of having let's say a bounce back year per se. There's no way he should be your hitter with the 3rd highest average on your team.
No, most people are talking about his defense more than his bat.
Hey, his bat's been pretty good though. Let's give him credit.
Yeah. It's the defense has been good. I'm not saying it's not. It should be spotlighted. He's been very, very good. But when you make a move and everybody in fantasy baseball is talking about Dalton Varsho, you're not talking about defense. You're talking about offense. And his bat that everybody poo-pooed is only an outfielder. If he's your 3rd best bat on the team and people are crapping on it, that doesn't bode well for you.
And let me just kind of surmise this all in one sentence as I'm looking at it over here. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, the powerful bat that we all know that he is, right?
Yes.
He got 6 walks on the year. His 330.
So great. He washed out in New York in a hitter's haven.
His 333 on base percentage is higher than George Springer, Bo Bichette, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yep. And Matt, as you know, we are contractually obliged this season in particular to talk about injuries on this podcast here. And guess what? The league has given us more names to drop here. I'll be updating the injury report tomorrow, so Friday, the 26th, with a bunch of the recent news. But Blake Snell, depending how much time he misses with his adductor strain, he swindled the Giants out of a boatload of money this year. Brian Bello heads to the IL. Cody Bellinger goes with fractured ribs, and Gavin Williams experienced pain in his return. So I believe I saw the post on X that he'll be shut down for 7 days and then reevaluated. I mean, I'm not surprised anymore, Matt. I don't know how else to say it. It's just injuries are running rampant. A lot of oblique and rib injuries.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Is it, we see it in the NFL, like, players are getting hurt because bigger, faster, stronger body can't hold the demands. Are these dudes just swinging harder and the torque and the twist is getting it? But like, why? I mean, we're just speculating, but so many oblique and rib issues.
I mean, did you see Cody Bellinger hit anything to break a rib? I think he did it swinging. Or did he hit the wall? Because there was an odd looking play out in the outfield against the wall, I think. Maybe he.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll look it up. You go ahead and talk about it.
But either way, that's not great. Somebody else has who else went out with a rib issue that I saw? I'm blanking on it now, but somebody else went out with a.
They're saying it's due to the crash in center field, so defense more so.
Fair enough.
But Costas is out with the rib. I thought it was going to be oblique, and they said his was rib.
Yeah, right. He was the one who did it swinging, strained his rib, which we touched on a little bit. He's going to be out for a while, according to Alex Cora, because it's not great. Broken ribs suck because there's not really anything you can do for it. You just got to wait for it to heal and take some pain meds, or something else in Bellinger's case, given all the memes that are out there about him. So not great. And then Lane Thomas also got injured. Slid weird and got like an MCL sprain. So that's it not great out there, man. I don't know what else to tell you other than duck and cover.
I'm glad you mentioned Lane Thomas there, because I'm going to use that as a segue into our next section here. But I will say, head over to fantasyalarm.com, check out the fantasy baseball injury report for all the updates regarding injuries across the league, fantasy impact, etc., and become an all-pro subscriber today so you can join the Discord and get inside the mind of Matt Selz, myself, and everyone else that we got here at fantasyalarm.com. And there is an updated prospect rankings, or prospect report, I should say, over at fantasyalarm.com, written by this guy right over here at the Salesman. You mentioned Lane Thomas. I'm going to ask Matt, Washington outfielder. I don't think the Washington outfield prospects are hurting for talent, to say the least.
No,
but let me kind of ask you the leading question. Are any of the names that we want amongst Washington outfield prospects going to be the name that comes up to replace Thomas while he's out with the knee issue?
Not right now. They already called up Trey Lipscomb. They recalled him, who they had sent down about a week ago. So to come back up, Lane Thomas got put on the IL. They were allowed to then recall Lipscomb, because when an injury happens, you can circumvent the 15-day. A guy has to be down in the minors for at least 15 days before you call him back up. So they're going to use him so they can rotate some guys through the infield there. Lipscomb was playing first base on Wednesday night. I saw watching the game, screwed up a double play. That's great. Thanks for that. But they have a decent amount of guys that they can rotate through the outfield right now. It's not sexy, obviously. But there's some guys. Jesse Winker, Joey Gallo can play in the outfield. Eddie Rosario is there. So it's not great. There's some other, dudes that you can have out there too. But Mike Rizzo, the GM of the Nationals, said we'd rather have him playing every day at AAA right now than call him up and give him part-time playing time for the time being. Now, he did specify that if Lane Thomas's injury is going to be longer than expected, you could look for James Wood to get the call up later assuming that at that point there's full-time playing time. But I don't disagree with that. You're letting the guy develop. He's still really young. Obviously, he's lighting the world on fire on AAA. Had a just absolutely phenomenal spring training. But let the guy get every day at bats. That's the best way for a young guy to learn. He's playing at AAA. It's the International League, which is about the fairest between pitchers and hitters. Um, so I'm fine with it. Leave him down there. There's literally no reason to start the clock on him right now. For fantasy, I know there's that push that we all want the shiny new thing. But this guy's running a real life ball club, and they want as long of a window as possible with James Wood and Dylan Cruz. And, you already got CJ Abrams up there, and you've got some, younger guys like Brady House is coming. So they want to extend the window as long as possible. So we're not going to see James Wood for, I would imagine, till the second half.
I think that's fair. And my guess is that they probably want to see him harness the strikeouts a little bit, hovering probably right around 25 or so percent. And the one thing I will note against left-handed pitching, 704 OPS, not horrible, but 8 strikeouts and 20 at-bats.
Yeah, it's not
so far.
He's a lot of swing and miss against lefties right now.
Yep.
Which isn't unusual for a young lefty hitter. He's also
Right.
big, and so harnessing his body in the zone is also tough to learn too.
And not to say he necessarily can't do it. There's enough talent in there, but yeah, I think might be a little bit till we see him there. And then obviously we have an outfielder in Houston who everyone is waiting for him to get the call up, thinking he's going to hit home runs his way up to the big league club. Talk to me about the powerful Houston prospect that is. Every time I jump on over on X, it's just home run, home run, home run, home run. Is the call coming soon for Mr. Joey? And I hope you can pronounce his last name, but is it Loper-Fido?
Yeah, Loper-Fido.
Cool.
It should be soon. The Astros need all the help they can get.
They sure do.
At this point, namely in managerial role, but that's beside the point. Loper-Fido can play outfield. He can play second base. He can play first base. Jose Abreu, I don't know if you've known this, but pretty sure he's not even batting his weight right now. Like, not even close. He gets a hit one every 4 games, I think, right now, which last time I checked is not great. 1 hit every 4 at bats, acceptable. 1 hit every 4 games, not so good. I would expect a call relatively soon for him. He went through 3 levels last year. He struggled a little bit when he got to AAA. In 32 games, he hit 235 for Sugarland. He's not doing that this year. He's hitting 279 right now, over 21 games. But he's clearly ready for a crack at the show. His OBP is 373 right now at AAA, so he's at least drawing walks if he's not making contact, which is good to see. His OPS is 1106, mainly powered by his home runs because he's got 12 of those bad boys in 21 games. So, yeah, I would expect a call for him pretty soon because, he's got power. On the 20/80 scale, we're talking he's about a 55, so that's above average. He also grades as a 55 for his run tool, which, again, above average. So when we're talking about above average, if you assume 20 homers is average and you assume 15 to 20 steals is average at this point, probably closer to 20. Above average indicates he could be a 25-25 guy if everything goes his way with an average hit tool. So, yeah, I would expect a call pretty soon for Loper-Fido.
And obviously, we've seen it in 2022 across single A and high A, 12 home runs, 32 stolen bases. And then in 2023 across multiple levels, high A, double A, and triple A combined for 25 homers, 27 stolen bases. If he were to get the call, is he someone that you would be prioritizing as a pickup?
Yeah, because he's going to have he's got pop, he's got some speed, and he's got the multi-positional eligibility, which really helps given we've already talked about outfielders who are injured. We've talked about Casas, who's a first baseman, who's injured. There's a few second basemen that have gotten banged up. In Toronto, Kevin Kiermaier's on the IL. Not that necessarily affects you. The other thing with Loper-Fido is he's a lefty bat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anybody's seen the Astros lineup recently. Not a ton of lefty bats right now. There's 2 of them. They're both very good, Yordan and Kyle Tucker. But they could use some lefty help there. because they don't even have a switch hitter in their starting lineup either. So yeah, I would expect relatively soon for Loper Fido.
Another prospect name that's buzzing around. People are trying to get him on their teams if they already didn't draft him, trying to anticipate the call up. And you had boots on the ground,
I did.
butt in the seat
You
to
can
see.
literally see me on the TV broadcast of the game. If you go back and watch, there's a guy in a light green hoodie sitting directly behind home plate. That's me.
Yep, that is at the
It's one of the
Salesman.
KBO scouts, man. They're
Yeah. So hopefully you got to see his posts over there. So everyone's kind of talking. When does Paul Skeens get the call? There might be some rumors. We've talked about many times that Pittsburgh is going to slow play pitching arms. So let me ask you this a bit facetiously. How far did you move Skeens down your rankings after he allowed an earned run?
he technically allowed two, but only one of them was earned.
His ERA is now a putrid 0.5.
Yeah, it's gross. I would say, look, I know I've been on record saying I don't think we see him till very late in the year. I think that's changed. I think the start that the Pirates have gotten off to has changed it. They have seen that nobody is particularly running away with the NL Central, which we figured was going to happen. But I think it's more mediocre than we even gave it credit for. Granted, the Cubs have been dealing with some injuries, right? Justin Steele hasn't been there for a while. Saya has been out. Now they got Belly injured. Um, Matt Mervis has gotten the call. Pete Crow Armstrong has gotten the call. Alexander Canary. So there's a lot of young talent in this division. I think the Pirates are keen to start getting theirs up. So I have changed my opinion on this. I think we get about 4 more starts from him in the minor leagues because he went 4 1/3 plus on Wednesday because he left. There was a guy on. He retired the first guy in the 5th and then gave up a hit and then came out of the game. So it was 4 1/3 plus because he left with a guy on. Went. I don't remember the exact. He threw 60 pitches through 4 innings.
He ended at 71 on Wednesday.
So yeah, so they're building him back up. I would say about 4 more starts to get all the way there, and then they want to get him through a lineup twice, at least I would think, before they call him up. But good Lord, man. Like, I could tell you he threw 98. I could tell you he threw 99. I could tell you a couple of them hit triple digits because the speed didn't show up on the radar gun at the stadium because they don't expect anybody throwing 100 at Warner Park, I guess. But the ease of which he threw it with was like me soft tossing it with my daughter, like when we practiced softball. Like there was no max effort. It was just rock and throw and went 98. And the slider looked like a frisbee. I think some of the secondary stuff could use a little bit of honing and control. He did get a little wild at times, but I'm just nitpicking to nitpick, man. This guy is spectacular. So I would say 4 more starts in the minor leagues for Skeens, and then he's fully aboard to Pittsburgh.
Yep, and the parity in the NL Central is paramount. Like you talked about, I think the early start for Pittsburgh might accelerate the clock a little bit
Yeah.
with Skeens because if you look,
let me add this in there because I was
yeah,
sitting next to a guy in a Pirates hoodie. It was one of the short sleeve pirate hoodies. Kind of looked cool. So I asked him if he was a Pirates fan from here. They were playing in Omaha, so it was about a 35-minute drive for me. He goes, "No, Twin Cities." I said, "You drove from the Twin Cities down to here?" He goes, "Well, Indianapolis comes to St. Paul later this year because they play. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but AAA has redone the way they do their schedule, and you play a team for a week. So Indianapolis has been in Omaha since Tuesday. They'll be here playing Omaha till Sunday, and then everybody travels on Monday, and you play for a week, right? So it saves travel time, it saves expenses, whatnot. So the St. Paul game for Indianapolis is later this year, but the guy was afraid that Paul Skeens wasn't going to be in Indianapolis at that point. So the guy drove, to give you an idea, it's at least 5.5 hours from St. Paul to Omaha. One way. Dude drove, and then he was like, okay, I gotta go once Skeens came out. He drove 5.5 hours to watch 4 1/3 innings of Paul Skeens. So that tells you, yeah, even Pirates fans out here are pretty well expecting him not to be there later in the year.
Yep. And for more prospect information down on the farm with Matt Selz, head on over to fantasy.com and check out his newest prospect report. Make sure you check that out. And Matt, let's take a little bit of the focus away from who could help us maybe in the coming weeks upon college, and let's look who can help us now if we are in a pinch with our fantasy teams. I can tell you that I am. So let's do a little waiver wire pickup and weekend streamers here to help everyone's fantasy teams as we head into the weekend. Who is a particular bat that you think people should be picking up?
So this one's basically if you need some steals and you need a guy with decent average who's getting playing time, the offense around him is pretty good. I'm talking about Johan Rojas, who's been starting in center field for the Phillies, batting towards the bottom of the lineup. I get it, not ideal for a lot of run production, but he's in the lineup every day. He's hitting 266. On base percentage could go up a little bit. 329 is not great, but he does have 7 steals and 64 at bats, and he's available. He's rostered, I think, in about 60% of or less than 60% of Fantrax leagues. I think it's way less. Sorry, I'm getting it confused with my streamer. He's rostered in like 30 something percent of Fantrax leagues. So if you lost Lane Thomas, who was lighting the world up with steals, I think he had about 10 at this point. You need some replacement. Rojas, he's not going to get you any power. Let's none of that. But steals could help. So Johan Rojas is the guy I'm looking at.
One for me, I'm going, if you look at MLB's pronunciation, it is Wheelier Abreu.
Yep.
Some will say Weiler, some will say Wheelier, whatever. But per the pronunciation, Wheelier Abreu. He's everyday player right now for Boston. I think something's up with Masataka Yoshida. The fact that he hasn't been in line the past couple of days makes me think, I think he's banged up a little.
Yep.
However, Boston cannot afford to take Abreu out of the lineup right now. During the 6-game hit streak he's on, he's slashing in whatever word you want to use, insane, gargantuan, 520, 571, 960. And when you look at some of his expected numbers, it does say there could be some regression coming, but I am not going to doubt.
He's not going to hit 525 for a season?
No, he might hit 425, but it's coming down. But hey, healthy, 15.7 degree launch angle. It's a good little park, and he's seeing the ball well right now. And again, simply put, Boston cannot afford to take him out of the lineup.
I mean, they have no, Devers is banged up. He's been out for, I think, 13 of the last 24 games or something for Boston. I don't know. They haven't put him on the IL, but he's been missing enough time that he probably should have gone on the IL. Tyler O'Neill is on the concussion list. Tristan Casas is out. Yoshida's been in and out. You're right. It's something weird's going on with Yoshida. So they got holes everywhere. Abreu's trying to fill all of them with one bat.
Yeah, and they have faced a ton of righties of late, but there was one game in there where a lefty started. Abreu still hit 4th, and in fact, he hasn't hit lower than 4th in a game for Boston since back on April 17th. He's moved his way up his lineup. He's now hitting in the heart of the order. He's not coming out.
They have no other options.
Well, true. But even when you look at some of the games they come back, like Tyler O'Neill moved into the 3 spot, Abreu hit 4th. There was time where he hit 2nd because they put Rob Refsnyder hitting 3rd. Shout out Boston with this lineup construction and flexibility they've had.
Who's still somehow in the major leagues for 15 years.
Yeah, I'm looking at the lineup back on the I'm trying to pick the lineup that's the most interesting. Back on April 20th, 420 day.
Well, that explains it.
Boston went Jarren Duran 1, Abreu 2, Rob Refsnyder 3, Tristan Casas, that was his last game, healthy, 4, Yoshida 5, Dahlbeck 6, Emmanuel Valdez 7, Reese McGuire 8, and Rafaela 9. That was the lineup that day. Fun stuff. So look at Abreu, and Matt, I'll take the streamer. I'll go first this week. I'm going to go against your Nats. I'm going to take Ryan Weathers. He's actually owned in more leagues than I expected him, or available in more leagues than what I expected him to be. But overall, Nats haven't hit lefties well this year. 3rd lowest WOBA and the 4th lowest WRC plus over the last 2 weeks overall. About a league average offense. And Weathers' strikeouts numbers have been insane of late. I believe his last 3 have been like 1, 10, and 1. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't expect many Ks against Washington. They typically hone strikeouts, or they reel the strikeouts in a little bit. But I think Weathers can give us a quality start. 6 innings, 3 or fewer earned runs, maybe 2 or 3 strikeouts. He should be able to get the job done as a weekend streamer. And then Matt, who is your weekend streamer? Who is actually my second choice, if we're being honest.
So we led off the pod with a pretty in-depth rant about how inept St. Louis is and how bad their offense has been, generally speaking, this year. So I'm going to pick against them. The Mets are playing the Cardinals this weekend. Jose Butto is starting for the Mets on Friday. He's been pretty decent. Like, his ERA is 1.6. It's not going to stay there. That's, whatnot. He went less than 5 innings against the Dodgers, but he still had decent numbers. Okay. The other 2 starts, more than 6 innings, a bunch of strikeouts. Walks are a little hit and miss. Sometimes he walks a few too many guys. But in 16 innings this year, he's struck out 21 guys. He's got a 1.68 ERA. And the Cardinals offense isn't hitting very well right now at all. I know they just put up 5 against the Diamondbacks, but it was Jordan Montgomery's first start and facing his old team who knew his tendencies and how he pitched and whatnot. So not really surprising that they hung 5 on the Diamondbacks there. But that would be my streamer, Jose Butto. He is rostered in about 60% of Fantrax leagues, but that means about 4 in 10 leagues you should be able to find him. I did not check ESPN rostership on Butto, but the Mets can string together some wins here. They have a decent enough offense that you could get some run support and some wins from Butto.
And Butto has a pitch mix that runs 5 deep, but truly he goes 5 deep against righties and actually 4 against lefties. So he's got multiple pitches, and 4 of his pitches have a whiff rate of 32% or higher. So maybe the opposition.
Not a streamer at this point. He probably should just be owned.
Agreed. But hey, we don't make the ownership numbers. They're there, and we just take them from there. So he's a guy you should stream this weekend, and honestly, leave him on your team. Matt, as we wrap up this episode really quick, we mentioned it. I saw over on X at the Selz Man. Go check it out. You posted your round of 1 mock draft that you did for the NFL draft. So as we head out here, I know it's a fantasy baseball podcast, but it is the NFL draft. Pretty big night. Give me a bold prediction for round 1.
So bold prediction, I'm going to go with what I tweeted out and a team that I really don't particularly like in the Patriots, but I think they get 2 picks. I think they trade out of 3. I think the Vikings are the most likely trade partner because they have 2 first rounders. So I think they trade out of 3. I think they get 11. I have them taking Latu at 11. And then they wind up trading with Denver, who desperately needs some more picks and some holes to fill, and they wind up getting Michael Penix as well. So they get a quarterback and a D end. I'll give you a hint. I think Penix is actually the best quarterback in this draft. We're not going to go diving deep into it, but I just think his arm talent is better than anybody else. He doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't take sacks, and he's pretty smart with the ball. So that's my shocker, is that the Patriots wind up with 2 first-round picks, and they're going to get 2 stud players, a defensive end and a quarterback.
One of my best friends texted me earlier this morning. We were talking about some stuff for the NFL draft. He said the same exact thing. He thinks Penix is the best quarterback that comes from this.
I thought that
class.
watching college football last year, I was like, why are people off of Penix? Like, basically, Washington was 4-8 before he showed up, and with basically the same cast around them, went to a national championship.
Yep.
Like, Rome Odunze was like a forgotten dude until Penix showed up, and now I don't know.
And then I'll go ahead. I'll tell you mine. So I think I go head over to my X account at Colby or Conway. I posted some of the bets that I have out there currently for the NFL draft. I think we're going to see a bunch of trades. I think we're getting over 6.5 trades. You can get that at plus 200. And what I'm
in my mock.
Yeah, and what I'm banking on is a little 2-for-1s. So do the Patriots move out of 3? Maybe they go to 11, and then do they come back up? Or do the Chargers move back, much like we saw with the Cardinals last year? Cardinals move back with the Texans to move up. Shortly thereafter, Cardinals move back up. with the extra picks that they got. So I think we get a little 2-for-1 somewhere in this draft. Not to mention, if a quarterback slips, someone will move up in the back part of the first round to get the 5th-year option.
If Penix or Bo Nix is most likely to slip, so if those guys slip, yeah, I think you're right. So
yep, head over to X at the Salesman. Check out his round 1 mock draft, as well as I believe you tweeted you got video from Skeens, as well as your seats from that day and the prospect report that you have. Check out my X at Colby or Conway. Check out my round 1 drafts, as well as the updated fantasy baseball injury report that is coming Friday. And head over to fantasyalarm.com. Check out all the great content that we got over there. Matt, quick update. Masataka Yoshida out of the lineup again today in the afternoon game against the Guardians. Something's up. He's hurt. I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if an IL stint's coming.
Why they won't put dudes on the IL, I have no idea. I also, by the way, in this prospect report, put a Boston infielder who may be the next call-up for them in there. So there's some interesting prospect news I saw. There's some, call-ups that could be coming. And then obviously I talk about debuts, Mitchell Parker for the Nats, a couple other guys in there. So it's a very loaded prospect report this week.
Check that all out over at fantasyalarm.com. Give us a follow, like, and subscribe. Join the family, and we'll talk to you in Discord. And we'll see you next week with the newest edition of Caught Stealing.